Ciao jewelry makers, I'm Joey Balistreri and I am doing another project with our January bargain bead box called A Galaxy of Gems. So I don't know if you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. It was completely unintentional, but I created this little bead pattern of connections and I loved this spiral pendant that came in the box, and I thought how beautiful it would be added to the bottom. And I looked at that and said, that looks like a spaceship, maybe even the Starship Enterprise from Star Trek. So I don't know if I'm just silly, but let me know if you guys are seeing the same shape that happened here totally by accident. But these Rhodonite cylinder beads are not from the box. I started to play with an idea that I had in my head, and I wanted to use something that was cylindrical to create this sort of boxed pattern, a little bit of geometry going on here. And then I went ahead and used the chain that's in the box, and I had to pull another magnetic clasp from my stash because I'm using all the findings in this box. It was just a fabulous box. So then after I did my sample and really liked the way it was looking, I thought, how can I recreate this with some things in the box? So I took and made elongated components with the blue goldstone that came in the box. And I went ahead and did all of the components because they are very repetitive, putting 3 of those beads on a piece of 20 gauge wire and doing a simple loop on each end. And so if you want to try this project, you will need 12 of those. And just a heads up, it is a connecting nightmare. So I made larger loops. I did a 3mm loop on the one we're going to connect together because the 1.5mm loops, they look great, but in some areas where several things had to intersect, it was very challenging to get it connected, get the loops closed. And then when I would hold it up, I had to, and I know this is a horrible view for you guys from the camera lens, but when I would hold it up, I would see that certain things were not connected properly. So it does matter where on the loops you connect. So that is a little bit challenging on this project. That being said, I absolutely love the way it turned out. I just think it is a beautiful piece. And in a box so filled with gemstones, there was no pink gemstones, and you know I love my pink things, so I kind of added in my own. But then for this piece, I have used my other drops and things, so I decided that I was going to create a drop on this one, and I just received my box from Softflex company, my Deco the Halls, and there were 2 little druzy beads in that box. So I sort of borrowed one from my other subscription box. And I am also using one of these 10mm agate beads that were supposed to represent Saturn, and I just chose one that was really nice and dark that I thought went with the galaxy beads. And I have out here a few of the little spacers that came in the box because I honestly don't exactly know how I'm going to create my drop yet. It's going to be a design on the fly, but I wanted to connect this with you and give you a little bit of an idea of the level of difficulty in case it's something you might be interested in trying on your own. And before I get started, I just wanted to show you all something, because a lot of people have said that the box didn't look cohesive, and in fact that was my first kind of reaction until I realized how clever and unique the collection of beads is in this box. And also, just another side note, this box had a retail value of $104, which normally our box is between $70 and $80 in value. So this box was quite wonderful. The findings in it are high quality, and I'm having a great time with all of the gold findings that were in it. But for those of you who are not separating out the beads the way that I did, I just wanted to share 2 things. This is a bracelet that I did many years ago, and I still wear it, and it is a mix of every gemstone under the sun. and it's only chips, but you can see that you can mix gemstone colors beautifully in one piece. And also, my friend Becky, I will try to link her video below. She did a solar system necklace using all of the gemstones, and her knowledge of the astronomy and the planets is amazing, and it was a really joyful video to watch. I thoroughly enjoyed what she did, and she did not separate her gemstones out the way I have done in my projects. She put them all in one necklace, and it's a stunning piece, and you'll learn a lot from her video. So, you know, you might want to jump over and watch her video after you're done with mine. So I've been following her for a long time, and I love her work. I always pick up tips from her, and you know, she's just really great. So anyway, let's connect this together. I'll set these aside because I am not exactly sure. I'm going to recreate this drop here. I did pull out from my stash, and maybe some of you have this. This was from a year or more ago from Curated Bead Box. We received this crystal ring pendant, and it's almost the exact same size as the pendant that came in this box. So if you find that you've used up your supplies and you want to duplicate this, maybe look in your stash. Maybe some of you, as I, did not use this when I got that box, but I still have it, so that could be a good substitute. It's just clear crystals, and it would go with the gemstones. So just a little side note. So the first thing about this piece is all of your loops can be going in the same direction when you make your simple loops. You need your loops to be oriented in the opposite direction. So let me see if I can show you, maybe remove the pliers a little bit. So one loop is going to be going perpendicular, or is that right? Horizontal to my mat. I'm sorry, I reversed it. One is going to be horizontal to my mat, and then the loop on this end will be going perpendicular up and down from the mat. And that is the only one that needs to be different. So we can start connecting, and you know, the simple loops are just so easy to open and close. You just open them like a jump ring. And I did find in doing this, because as I said, it is a challenging, normally connecting is the most fun of a project, but in this case, it was very challenging. So I did find that it helped me not to get lost in where I needed to connect things if I left it laying flat on my mat as well as I could. So, and even, oops, I dropped my pliers, and even like using your pliers almost like tweezers to keep things going in the direction that you need them to. The first one, you know, is not too bad, and I'm hoping that the larger loops, so I did use my one-step looper for this project, and you know, normally I say get those loops in there however you need to, whatever works best for you. But this was a great project for this 3mm one-step looper because they are all really uniform, and that is really helpful. As you can see, it really needs to be all the same size and really uniform. So then we're just going to move our way up, and as I said, you know, kind of keeping it on your mat is helpful, so that because every time you pick it up, you can lose your grid or the shape that you're going for. And it is challenging because you see I just moved it and the loops will spin. And you can also, you know, lay it in a square because essentially it is a connection of squares. And so this first part is not too bad. It's the center intersection that is a little bit challenging to get your pliers in there. But if you keep putting it back into the square, it should help you not to get lost. And so I think I'll go for this very middle connection next and see how this goes. And let's see, we'll do the side one. So this one is going to go horizontally, and you know, it looks like a grid when it's laying flat on your mat, but you can see that once you can see from my sample that once you've connected your chain, gravity pulls it into a little bit of a point, a little bit of an arrow. So again, here's where I found it challenging, is I really wanted to keep my beads in the order that I need them to be and still open and close these loops. So let's see. I'm using so here's where everything is going to meet in the middle, and it is a little challenging. Like I said, maybe use your pliers almost like tweezers so that you don't get too lost in the grid. It sounds like a sci-fi movie. Just get in there. And I, full disclosure, when I finished connecting this one, I would think I had it just the way that I wanted it, and then when I would hold it up, I had 2 or 3 things that I had to disconnect and reconnect, and then I discovered I did need to change the orientation of the loops on this bottom. But I don't know, I know I'm a bit far away from the camera, but that is the challenge, is that in connecting, things move around and it's very easy to get lost in where you need to connect your next loop, whether it's on the top or bottom of the previous loop. So this is the challenge. Just, I gave you a warning to be patient if you are interested in doing this project, that this is the challenge. But I do love the effect. Sometimes those challenging things are really worth it. And I did find that I twisted some things inadvertently when I was connecting. And so you'll see, like when you pick it up, it can be a little bit challenging. But so right here, let's see, is it where it needs to be? I might have just twisted that one. Let me keep going, and I may on this one go back. It looks like, I don't know. Let me keep going. This is what happened to me on the other one. As I said, it's a little bit challenging in the connecting. But we'll go up the side. We know that one is going to go on the top of this loop. So that's what matters, is that, I'll pick this up so you can see, but that's what matters here, is that this simple loop and the one that's connecting here, that it's below the one I'm going to add this one on the top rather than below it. So I hope that's not too confusing. And so I did find on my sample that, it was best to get it connected when all the pieces are in place. Then it was a little bit easy to see where I needed to make adjustments. But the nice thing is all the components are the same. So other than that first one where the loops are oriented a different way. And I have to say, the 3mm loops have made this so much easier than the first one I did with the smaller loops. So much easier. That little bit of extra space inside the loop is really useful. Make sure that this one goes there, and then the last connection before I go and see what I need to repair. Whoops. This loop is so well closed and so round, I had a hard time seeing which side of it to put my plier to twist it open. Okay, so the connecting is done, and let's see, let me hold it up and see if everything is hanging properly. Actually, I might not need to adjust anything on this one. This one is pretty cool. So I felt like I do have more of this chain that's in the box, but I am working on a video for yet another necklace where I intend to use this chain, and I felt like it might be a little bit dainty for this. So I just went into my stash, and I had purchased this chain from Michael's. I think Bead Landing is Michael's, and I thought if I am going to use the druzy agate, I thought that this color of crystal really went well with the druzy, and the gold matched the wire that I'm going to use. So I think that I will put this chain on this necklace. I can find the end on the card. There it is. Let me see what kind of length I have on it. Just going to pull back from the camera a little bit and measure it on myself. It's actually a really great length. I might take off 1 or 2 links. Now on this one, I really liked having the larger jump ring, and in order to make it hang right, I did have to do a small jump ring and then a larger jump ring just to get it hanging the way that I liked. As I said, that was the challenge, was to keep picking it up and see that it was hanging the way you want. So you could either go ahead and attach your chain, which I really like the larger jump rings on it. So let me see. I made some. Where's my little jump ring bag? Oh, here it is. I made some little jump rings out of the same 20 gauge wire that I did the components out of. And so I think I'm going to take out 2 large and 2 small and at least start there. That's what I did on my other one, and it did hang nice. So with my components being different, we'll see if I can do that again. And maybe on my other one, I actually did the chain at the very last, but maybe having the chain on there will help to see how the pendant is hanging, since it's going to be a created pendant instead of a ready-made pendant. And let's see, I guess I'll go ahead and close this because both my large jump rings are open, so I'll have to do those as well. Let me find the end of this chain. Except for this, to keep using your pliers as tweezers was kind of helpful not to get lost in where I needed to go next or how things were hanging. So I do kind of like that chain. I am notorious for finishing a piece and then photographing it and then looking at it or putting it on and standing in the mirror and changing my mind. So that is part of my process. For now, it's the chain that we're going to use. So let's see, and the sample that I made, well, the samples always take longer because you're working out the design and the spacing and all of that, and whatever problems there are in the design that have to be resolved are already worked out. So let's see, let me just back away from the camera one moment. On this one, my jump ring is on, my small jump ring is on the wrong simple loop. So this is exactly what happened on my sample piece, is that the connecting is critical where things are. It makes all the difference in the world in how the piece is hanging, and it's very easy to connect things in the wrong place. It's an easy fix too, but it's just the challenge of this particular design. Okay, that actually looks pretty good. I will still have to pull it away from the camera. So now I have to decide on a clasp, and I've used all of my magnetic clasps except for little tiny ones. So I did go into my stash and I had a good supply of these little toggle clasps, which are from the Bead Box Bargains. And I sort of liked them with our space theme because they had almost like those little craters or asteroid, like the little bit of texture on it, and I just thought it went really well with the sparkle in these blue galaxy beads. So that is probably going to be the clasp that I put on that. So let's work on this little druzy drop. I've gone down to 22 gauge wire. It's the same one that I always use, the Beadalon medium tempered round wire, but in 22 gauge, just because I want to make this little druzy bead feel a little bit bigger and chunkier than it is, and I have no idea what I'm actually going to do. I just want to do something really organic and kind of put some gold around this druzy bead. So I want to do a wire wrapped loop on each end of this bead. I'm going to need that for creating my pendant, but I want a long tail on both ends of the bead. So I might have to pull out of the camera a little bit because the wire is going to hit the camera, but I'm going to come down not quite to the middle of this. It's about a 12-13 inch piece of wire, and just get a 90-degree bend in there and warm and straighten this wire, and just do a normal loop on this end. As I said, I have to back away from the camera just a bit because it's a long piece of wire, longer than I would normally work with. I just don't want to short myself because I don't really know what I'm doing. I didn't sketch. This is just me playing with wire and a bead to see what I get. So I'm just gonna have that nice little loop in there, and let me see if I want to string on one of these gold spacer beads. They have a nice weight to them, and it adds a little bit of gold presence there. Let's see. Oh yeah, I kind of like that. Okay. Yeah, I don't want this bead to spin because, as you can see, the back of this piece of druzy is not very pretty. So that is also my goal in whatever I create here, is to make it nice and stable and firm facing forward. So, oh, let's see. I'll just do a bead on the top since I want it to be organic. Do have to pull away from the camera because I have a really long tail on the other end of this wire, but that's all I'm doing is a simple wire wrapped loop. Just get a few wraps in there, and I think what I'll do is do my first wraps really nice and neat because I'm going to cage this bead somehow, and I'll do some messy wraps on top, or I'm not sure yet. Honestly, I'm not sure yet. I'm kind of playing with it. I will see, but you see I have left myself some really long tails so that I can decide if I want to come down the side of the bead. And oh, I do kind of like that, just kind of framing this bead with the wire. Let me see. Oh, that's pretty. Just get it. This bead has a little thickness that way, so I am just really totally playing. I'm really playing. Let's see, this one, this wire here, what do I want to do with it? Yeah, I sort of like that. Let me go behind. Just trying to fill in this space a little bit around this druzy bead because the beauty and the sparkle of this bead is all on the front. The side and the back is, kind of looks like a raw unpolished stone. Let's see. I want to come down this side again. And even it's strange because this side of this druzy bead is narrower than this side, so I might not be able to get as many wraps of the wire without it sort of coming off the edge. I didn't want to do, I really didn't want to do like the classic herringbone wrap, which you could do here. It would be pretty, but I wanted something that was a little bit free form and, you know, that sort of floating in outer space feeling, if that makes sense. Let's see. This is crossed over here a little bit. That's my fatter side. And this is my skinnier side of this bead. I'm just going to gently, careful not to damage my druzy bead, but just coax those wires inside. Oh, I kind of like this. It's different. And that's what I wanted. And I think I might, let's see if I can just maybe use up the whole length of wire. Just get that to go in. I would really like to get one more piece of wire down this side, even though it's skinnier than the other side. Let me see if I can make that happen. And just messy wrap on top of everything. I need to straighten out that loop a little bit. I've totally covered up my gold bead, but that's okay. And I think I actually like that. I kind of like the way that turned out. Oh, that's really beautiful. Okay, let me trim away and tuck in my wire ends.
Motion detected at the front door.
I had to pause. Someone was at my door and my son's medicines were being delivered. So I have taken another length of this 22 gauge medium tempered wire, and I think that both of the, I think that two doubled over, it will fit in this Saturn bead, I think. If it won't, maybe I have to go down to the 24 gauge. Let me just check before I go through. Yes, it will work. Okay, so I'm going to take another one of those little gold spacers, and this is going to be kind of a weird head pin, if you will. I'm just going to string it at the very bottom, fold this wire in half. Let me get it to sit properly at the bottom. Let me bend this wire a little bit around this gold bead. Get a little kink in it. The one time when you really want a kink in your wire. So you see, it's just kind of like sitting in there. And I'm going to draw these two together as best I can without mangling them. And again, because I really like the boldness of the pendant on my sample piece that I did, I'm trying to create something else that's quite bold for the drop on the piece we're working on. So that's the method to my madness. Okay, so I just drew those wires together and I'm just kind of making a funny little head pin, and my idea is to do a very messy organic wire wrapped loop at the top of this little Saturn bead, this agate bead. I keep calling it the Saturn bead, just to kind of coordinate with the, you know, with the messiness of the framing and the caging that I did of the druzy bead, and then attach it at the bottom there. So that's kind of where I am going, and I want that bead to be facing forward, so I'm going to want to make my loop here going back. Get it nice and warm and try and keep those two together and wrap this. I'm going to try to wrap it as if it were just one wire and not two. This is my idea. As I said, I have not planned this out. I really don't, really just going with it. I'm kind of liking the way it looks so far. And so before I close it up, and it's a little tricky with two wires that you're trying to keep them together, I'm just going to open it and attach it to the bottom little loop, which I kind of wrapped some of my wires right over it even. So this will almost, hopefully, look like a continuation. And close that loop up and kind of line those up again and get in there gently and start wrapping. Let's see how that's going to look. Oh, it's kind of cool. Okay, just going to get a hold of it as best I can. The nice thing about the 22 gauge wire is it's pretty soft and malleable, and it doesn't give you too hard of a time. Well, I'm going to just stop here because I did consider also caging this agate bead, and I have plenty of tail. So let me just stop here and kind of assess if I want to do that or leave it plain. Let me see. So what I was thinking is to maybe even separate these, or maybe I will. Let me go around. I want to follow the natural path of the wire, so I'm going to wrap this around one more time. So if you can see that, and there's even a little, like, I don't know if the camera is picking it up, but there's a little banding in this bead. Let me warm this with my fingers, and I think what I'm going to do is just try to wrap it around the front of this agate bead and then secure it at the bottom. Let's see. I mean, the nice thing about trying this is my wire wrap is already there, so if you're playing around with wire like this and you're not happy with what you did or the way it looks, you could always cut it off. That's the nice thing about having some extra little tails here. But I do kind of like it. Let me see if I can move it up a little bit so it's showing. And from there, you know, you could keep designing. Like, I got my two wires right beside each other, but from there you could keep designing and take your pliers and put some, you know, kind of like, it always looks like lightning bolts to me when I put some kinks in wire. So that could happen here. I'm just going to messy wrap all the way down to my bead. And before I cut, just make sure everything finished off where I wanted it to. I'm sorry, I keep bumping the camera. I'm a little having fun with this wire. I like doing things that are very artistic and free form sometimes without too much of a plan. You just, sometimes for me, I get the best result when I just have fun and play. And honestly, I don't usually like the camera rolling when I'm doing that, because I don't want to feel like I would be disappointing someone if it didn't work out and I want to cut it away and try something different, you know. But today, aside from all the interruptions, I just decided to kind of share this process with you all. Sometimes it's validating when we see that other creators, you know, have the same process as we do. I really love that. I would really like it to be a little bit more toward the front of the bead, but it's so pretty. Let me bring in my nylon jaw plier and see if I can just, without stressing my bead or my wire, just move it a little bit better. Go one more time and just see. Okay, so now it is ready to attach to the bottom drop of our little pendant. I had two of those beads left over, and I need a little jump ring. So I made these, I always make extras when I'm making jump rings. I made these out of 20 gauge wire with my druzy facing forward. Get that jump ring closed up really well. And let's see what we have. Oh, it's really pretty. Oh, it's really, really pretty. I will get some pictures of this up for you guys to see. And so I hope this was a fun project and sparked your creativity. That's what I always hope when I'm making things. So I will get pictures of both of these up. I did not add the toggle clasp yet. I'm going to go to the mirror and put this over my head, and I even considered making it an over the head necklace with no clasp. So I'll try it on and decide if I'm going to put this little sort of asteroid looking gold toggle clasp on it. But I really appreciate you watching today, and I hope you're all enjoying this box or using the designs and pulling from your own stash to make some creations, and that you feel inspired. And I really thank you for watching. Have fun, everybody, and take care. Ciao, jewelry makers.